I'm sharing my screen. Today topic is how server will process each request. How server will process each request. So this is the today topic. How server will process each request. Each request. This is the title today topic. Generally, what will happen in the last session we already done the discussion, and then I will show you one more time with diagrammatically, and then once we get the clarity on diagrammatical, then we'll go with theoretical both as well. Okay, so generally where we have the client, right? This is the client, you can assume this is the client, and then you can assume we have the server. Okay, when the client will send the request, so the request directly will not go to the server, it will take the help from the http methods. So that what I am saying here it is. So the browser will convert it to the http method. Okay, so here we'll be having request plus http methods. So I would like to mention here we have the request plus http methods. Request plus http methods. Okay, this is the client, this one is the server. Okay, so client will send the request to the server. So what the server immediately it will do, so based on the request, immediately it will create two objects. One object which is with respect to, immediately it will create two objects. Okay, one object is request, and this is the request object, and the second object is resource object. Are you guys clear with my point? And where we have here, this is our web application. This is our web application. Web application. So generally, what will happen when the client will send the request to the server will take the request and process the request. Initially it will take the request. Immediately the server will create two objects. One is the request object. This is the request object. This is the resource object. Okay, server immediately it will create the two objects. One is the request object. Second one is the resource object. These two are, this is the server request object, and this is the server resource object. Okay, this object is browser object. Okay, so it will also I would say the request, it will be converted into the http request. That request client browser will send to the server. Browser only it will send to the server. Okay, once it will receive the request, immediately the server, what the server will do, immediately it will create two objects. One is request object, second one is resource object. Okay, so this is the thing, this is our web application generally. So I will mention here, this is web application, this is our web app our web application. Okay, so server, it will it will read the request, it will take the request and read the information. So if the resource is available, then that information it will be stored in the resource object, and that resource object will send to the client. If the server is not available, if the resource is not available, then server only will write one error message. That error message it will store in the server. That error message it will store in the resource, and that resource it will send to the browser. So this is the process which is happens behind. Are you guys clear with my point? We have the client. when the client send looking for searching for some specific URL, the request initially the request will convert it into the browser only. It will convert request to request plus HTTP method, request plus HTTP. Okay, so with the help of this request, the request will go to the server. Immediately server, it will take the request and immediately it will create the two objects. One is with respect to request, one is with respect to resource. So in the request server request object, it is holding the data like whatever the user is looking for. Okay, those information the server will be stored in the request object. Okay, and then it will process, and then the resource is available information will be stored in the resource object. If it is not available, server only will prepare one error message. That information it will be stored in the resource object. So this is the thing you can remember. Okay, this is the request object, and this is the resource object. Are you guys clear with the point? Okay, the same thing. So what is the first point? Client will send request. Client will send I would say request to the browser, right? This is the first point, where initially we will use the get method or post method. Get method or post method. Get method or post method. So here we'll be having one more question. What does it mean by get method? Get method is to fetch the data from the server. Get method is to fetch the, so guys I will zoom. This is visible for everyone. uh, get method which is used to fetch or get the data from the server, to fetch the data from the server. Okay, next post method which is used to submit the data into the server, to submit the data into the server. Okay, okay, so client will send the request to the browser. Okay, what the browser will do immediately? Browser will, I would say, browser will convert request to browser will convert a request to HTTP request. Are you guys clear with my point? It will convert HTTP request. So browser it will convert an HTTP request and will send to server, and the request will send to server. Okay, that is the second point. In the third point, so what the server will do? Server receive the request. Server receive the request, and receive the request, and it will create two objects. One is request object. One is, I would say, one is request object, and the second one is and resource object. Second one is resource object. Okay, it will create two objects. Okay, server receive the request and immediately it will create two objects. One is request object, second one is the resource object. Okay, so in the fourth point, what it will do? It will take the request. Server, fourth point, server will take the request, process the request. Server will take the request and take the information and that information will be stored. That information will be stored in the request object. request object. Are you guys clear with my point? And then the fifth point is I would say, if the resource is not available, if the resource if the request is if the requested resource is not available, if the requested resource is not available, resource is not available in case not available, then server will prepare one error message. Server will prepare one error message. Server will prepare one error message. I would say one error message. That message will be stored in the that message will be stored in the resource object. Will be stored in the resource object. Resource object. Okay. That is the fifth point. Okay, if the requested resource is not available, so server will prepare error message. That message will be stored in the resource object. So, and then it will send to the browser, and then it will send to the browser, and then it will send to the browser. Okay, if the request is not available, in that case it will happen the process like this. But in some cases, I would say, if the requested resource is available, if the requested resources is available, then what will happen? Then what will happen? Servlet will call the server will call the servlet methods actually. Okay, server will call the servlet methods and execute the business logic. Execute the business logic. Business logic. Business logic. And that information will be stored in the that information will be stored in the resource object. Will be stored in the resource object. Okay, resource object. And then in the case of seventh point, in case of seventh point, so server will send resource object to the browser. Resource object to the browser. So this is the process which is happens internally. Are you guys clear to a point? So how to server will process each request? So it will process each request like this. It will process each request like this. So first client will send the request to the browser with the help of either get or post method. After, browser will convert request to HTTP request and will send the request to server, and the server will receive the request and create two objects. One is the request object, second one is the resource object. Okay, server will take the request and take the information. That information will be stored in the request object. And fifth point is, if a requested resource is not available, server will prepare one error message, and that error message will be stored in the resource object and it will send to the browser. And if the requested resource is available, server will call the servlet methods and execute the business logic. That information will be stored in the resource object and it will send to the browser. Okay, server, and it will send to the browser, and it will send to the browser. And it will send to the browser. Right, are you guys clear with my point? So this is the how the server will process each request. How the server will process each request. Okay, in the last session we already done the discussion with the steps to develop the web application, right? So there itself, so I will write one more time: steps to develop the web application. So first one is set up the server. Set up the server, meaning we need to download and we need to set up. Download, download and install. Okay, that is the first point. Second point is create dynamic web project. Create dynamic web project. Dynamic web project. Okay, and third step is set up the build path. Set up the build path. Okay, and then fourth step is create servlet class. Create servlet class. Create servlet class. Fourth one, fifth one is each servlet, every servlet should have the URL pattern. URL pattern. So URL pattern. So we have to map. We have to map each servlet, with unique URL pattern. Unique URL pattern. Okay, unique URL pattern. Okay, next thing is, so we will write the business logic and then you can build and then you can deploy. We can deploy, right? So in the servlet life cycle also, it is having the some life cycle. It is having some life cycle. I will show you that life cycle. For example, here if I go to and if I look for the servlet hierarchy, I will open. Here I will go to the images. Servlet hierarchy. If I look for the servlet hierarchy, if I open this one, if you see here, this is visible for everyone. I visit this page. If I scroll down, so servlet is the interface. This is the parent, and after the servlet, we have the generic servlet. This is the one class. This is the one class. My servlet is the one class. Okay. So whenever you are writing the servlet is nothing but normal Java classes only, where we have the methods are like init method, service method, destroy method. Those methods are coming from predefined HTTP servlet methods. Okay. So whenever you are writing the servlet, we have to mandatorily, we have to inherit the predefined class properties, which is HTTP servlet. This is the recommended approach, but generic servlet we will not use more cases. So mostly frequently we will use the HTTP servlet. HTTP servlet. Okay, at the time of writing the servlet also, by default, so IDE also will provide the HTTP servlet. Okay, HTTP servlet. This is the hierarchy of the servlet. First, where we have the servlet interface, and then generic class. Next, we have the HTTP servlet, and then my servlet. These three are the classes. Among those three classes, at the time of writing the servlets, we will use HTTP servlet class only. We will use HTTP servlet class only. Okay, this is clear. This is the hierarchy of the servlets. And then next thing is, if you see here, destroy method. Okay, fine. So this is the servlet life cycle. Now simply this is the process. Now what I will do, I will take one login form. Okay, I will show you here. I will take one login form. This is a front end HTML page I will take. Okay, in the HTML page I will take one login form. Already you guys aware how to, like, in the create the project, everything, the basic scenarios you already aware. So here I will take one html file. Here I will take one form. Okay, so forms is the separate topic in the HTML. If anybody is not aware, so just to go through the forms topic in HTML. This is the HTML topic. Okay, in the form I am taking, so I'm opening the form tag, I'm closing the form tag. Inside the form tag I'm taking the input element. Input input I'm taking the input. Okay, in the input we need to mention what kind of data you want to store. Type equal to text. I am mentioning type equal to text, and then I'm mentioning name equal to some name, like admin, like that I will give. Okay, and then I will, similarly this is the username and this is the some password I will take, and I would say this information I will send to the server, and then in the backend logic I will validate those credentials. I can validate by using the backend logic. Okay, I will take the request, and in that request I will take these two other, I would say these two information I will take there, and then I will validate. If they both are validate is successful, then I need to display login success, login successful, login successful. This message I want to display. If the I would say the both are is not match, then you can say login is unsuccessful. This is the scenario I will write, and then I will show you. You can observe. Simply I am going to IDE. Okay, so I am creating, you can take any project. In our case you can take any project. Okay, in my case I am taking first I will take the HTML file. Simply click on it, Control N, and then you can look for the file. And then here I would like to mention some registration, index.html, main.html, anything you can give. Okay, so in my case I am giving some registration.html, registration.html. Okay, so every HTML file have the structure, right? The structure are like, the first one we need to take the HTML, and then inside the HTML we need to take the head and body. How to take the head, and inside the under the head we need to take the body. Okay, so inside the body what I am doing, I am taking form element. I am taking form element. So I am opening the form element, and I am closing the form element, and inside the form I am taking one input element. Input, I am mentioning input. I am mentioning input element, right? And here I would like to mention type equal to text, and then name equal to, so I would like to mention some admin. Okay, admin, I am mentioning some admin. Similarly I can take one more input. So here I will mention some password, for understanding purpose here can mention placeholder also, placeholder. Okay, placeholder you can mention enter username. Okay, here I am taking the text is placeholder, meaning this is the watermark text. The watermark text will be displayed on the placeholder. I will show you. Enter username, enter username. Okay, the same placeholder attribute. So this attribute you can take anyway, like the name you can take, like here the text you can take the last. So there is no, I would say there is no sequence. You can take anyway, anything, anywhere. Next, placeholder, here I am taking enter password, enter password. Okay, enter password, right? Okay, so I need to submit these two like username and password. So for that purpose, I will take one button as well. So for that purpose, I will mention the button, and then inside the button, I will mention the type is submit type. The type is I would like to mention the submitter, submit type, and then here I will mention the text is submit. As of now is clear, guys. As of now is clear. This is inside form tag. Okay, so form by default behavior is get method. You like it or don't like it, whenever you mention the form. So some guys they might be asked like instead of writing the form, should we write the div also? Yes, if you write the div also you will get the same structure, but form element will have the by default nature is get method. Okay, if you not mention also, if you write the inside the form method, form element, by default it will execute the get method. But if you write the div, it won't, but div don't have by default div form, all are the empty blanks only. Okay, all are empty blanks only. Okay, in the form we need to specify get method. In div we need to specify, but in case of form, by default behavior is the get method. By default method is the get method. And here the thing is, hmm, we need to mention the name. Name is also one mandatory attribute in case of form. Okay, if you not mention the name attribute, it won't submit the data, our data into the server. So name is the one mandatory attribute. So I am mentioning the name, and then you can mention with any name. So here I will mention the registration, registration 1. Okay, registration 1. Okay, as of now is clear. I am taking form element, inside the form I am taking two inputs. Okay, this is fine, and then I am saving this one, and then now I am going to the backend, and where we have basic servlets. So you can click on Control M, select on the package and Control M, look for the servlets and click on the servlets. So if you see here, so superclass by default it is providing the HTTP servlet only. By default, I am not select anything. By default, ID is providing the HTTP servlet only. Okay, this is the recommended approach. So that's why ID also providing by default HTTP servlet. Here I am taking the class name is some registration. Registration. Okay, I am taking the class name as the registration, and then next. And then if you see here, every servlet will maintain one unique URL, right? So by default, it will provide with the class name. If you want, if you like this one, you can take that one. If you want to change, you can change. Okay, if you want to change, you can change. But by default, it will provide the mapping with class name only. Okay, and then next. Okay, so as of now, these all are the like servlet methods. Do post method is not required. And then so what I'm doing, that's why I'm unselecting the unchecking the do post method. Only in my case, I'm using only do get method. Okay, and then finish. Right. So by default, we will get like this. And then I am removing this comments, and here also we will use only do get method only. So also not required. Okay. Uh, as of now, we have this is the class name, predefined class. We are extending the predefined properties, and then next we have do get method. Do get method which is coming from the HTTP servlet, and which is having the request object, and which is having the response object, right? So now So the request will go to the server. What the server will do, so it will take the information. That information will be stored in the this request, okay. Now what I am doing, I am using that request dot request dot parameters, request dot get parameters, the request dot parameters, request dot get parameters. So you can take the string name, and there we have passed some admin, right? Some admin, some admin, and then I'm taking the parameters, and those parameters I am storing in uh, some username, and this variable data type is the string. Okay. Similarly, I can do with in case of password also, request dot get parameters. Here I can take the password is 1 2 3 4 5, some I would like to take up to 5. Okay, and then this one I am storing in some string value. Okay, and then here you can take the variable name. The variable name is the I am would like to take the password. I'm taking the password. Okay, here I'm taking the conditions. Once the both are equal, then only can allow. Also, how I am taking the conditions basically. If the condition username dot equals to here I will mention admin, and then if it is okay, then it will go to the inside. And if block, here I would like to mention password dot equals to password dot equals to here I can mention 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5, and then I would like to mention here I would like to mention sysout statement, sysout statement. And moreover, one more point also, in the servlets we won't use any main method. Okay, in the servlets we won't use any main method. Okay, only core Java will use the main method. In case of here, we won't use any main method. Okay, so here I am displaying the messages, registration successful, registration successful. Okay, so if the both credentials are wrong, there you can take the else block, and here you can display the message is invalid credentials, invalid credentials, invalid credentials. Okay, so I am taking the parameters, I am validating, and if the both are okay, then we can now we can map this backend file and the front-end file with the help of URL pattern. So here you can take action attribute, and there you can mention that URL pattern here. Okay, next here also can method also get method. So get method is you like it or don't like it. By default, it will execute get method only. By default, it will execute get method only. Okay, so I am saving this one, and here also I will save this one. I will save this one. Now, what I will do, I will deploy this project. So simply you can right click on the project, right click on the I would say file, run on server, select next, and then finish. Okay, restart the server. So here, if you see here, it is coming enter username, enter password. So in case of enter username, I am giving admin. In case of here, I am giving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 5 I am giving. So if I click on the admin, then you are getting internal server. Basically, we'll stop the server, move this one. Again, we'll start the server. 500 meaning which side error that one? Server side. So now we can go to the Wipro Technologies and then we can run on server. Okay, you click on the next and then finish. Now click on the server, run on server. You can select next. These two you can remove remove and then finish. Restart the server. Okay, here you can give your admin, and then here you can give the password 12345. You are getting the data is server error, meaning you need to restart the target server. Restart the server. Okay, you can now can see run on server, select the server, next and finish. Here you can give the data is admin, and here you can give the data is 12345, and then click on the submit. So if you see registration successful. Okay, this is in case of when you are giving the correct credentials. Whenever you I would say you want to give the wrong credentials in the time, so I will show you. I will go to simply registration.file. Now I'm stopping the server. Okay, again I'm starting the server. Okay, the server has started. Now I will deploy the file, the specific file into the server. Run on server and click on the server. Next, finish. Okay, here admin, and here I am giving wrong credentials. Okay, the both are wrong credentials I am giving. If I submit, if you see invalid credentials, how my data is coming. So generally I am giving in the HTML form. So the request is going to the server is preparing two objects. One is the request object, second one is the resource object, and so that resource object, we are getting the data like this. Are you guys clear with my point? So this is the generally the process will happen. If I click on the registration.html, Mm. This is the thing we will use in general life. For example, in the registration form and whenever you are logging with some Facebook, okay, some Gmail. So all the cases we will use like this only. Generally, we will give the username and password. So it will check to the database. If the both are equal, then only our it will be open. It will be login. If not, it won't log in. If not, it won't log in. Are you guys clear with my point? So all of you, can you please read these points? How the server will process each request. What is the first point? Client will send the request to the browser. Hmm. Next post. Next point. Next third point. Next. Next one. Next point. Next one. Okay, next one. Mm, okay. So your assignment is you can take one. One is the login form. Login form is the one, and second one is the registration form. Registration form. Okay. We can do the two assignments, and then your interviews will be. Uh, Today is Tuesday, right? Your interviews will be next Tuesday and Friday. Next Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay. Uh, Next week, Wednesday, your interviews. Okay. So in this week, your interviews will be taken like online. Okay. And then your interviews will be having the grades A grade, and then I would say B grade, and then C grade. Three grades. Okay, whoever is got the A and B grade, those guys will move to the next process. Okay, those guys will move to the next process, and the same day your the results will be shared in the same day in your group. Okay, whoever got the A, whoever got the B, the same your results will be shared in the same group, same day. Like for example, if you complete the interviews at 11 o'clock, okay, your interviews results will be shared in the same group evening. Okay, so those guys will move to the next process. Whoever clear the interviews, those guys will move to the next process. This is the entire scenario. Okay, also please do the assignments on this login form and registration form. The thing is the same, and you can note down these all the points, and then you can practice multiple times. You can get the clarity. Okay, interview also like we will ask theoretically and practical also. Coding also, by coding side also we'll check, and practical side also we'll check. Whoever clear the both, whoever good at both scenarios, those guys only will move. Okay, we won't encourage like only the theoretical. So some guys they are saying like we have only the knowledge of theoretical. No, we don't encourage. Whoever is having the good knowledge on theoretical and practical, meaning coding wise also we will check. Both are good, then only those guys will move to the next process. Okay, while doing your task or if you stuck anywhere while doing any task, you can ping me, I can help you. Okay, so this is your overall scenario. Your interviews will be next Wednesday. Okay. This is the only the servlet part. ఓకే. హ్మ్. 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 బ్యాక్ బ్యాక్ ఎండ్. ఆ! ఆ! అన్నీ జనరల్లీ చాలా మెథడ్స్ ఉంటాయి మనకీడ. కానీ మనం డేటా డూ గెట్ అనేది డేటా తెచ్చుకోవడానికి. ఇప్పుడు జనరల్ ఇక్కడ ఏం చేస్తున్నాము, ఆ ఉన్న పారామీటర్స్‌ని తెచ్చుకుంటున్నాము. వాటిని వాలిడేట్ చేస్తున్నాం. ఆ 2 ఓకే అనుకుంటే రిజిస్ట్రేషన్ సక్సెస్‌ఫుల్. రాంగ్ ఉంటే ఇది ఇన్వాలిడ్ క్రెడెన్షియల్స్. అవి బై డిఫాల్ట్ మెథడ్స్ అవి. ఈ సర్వ్లెట్ వర్క్ అవుతుంది. దాని నుంచి నీకు సర్వ్లెట్ అనే ఇంటర్ఫేస్ ఉంది కదా! ఇంటర్ఫేస్‌లో ఏముంటాయి? మెథడ్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఆ మెథడ్స్ అక్కడ ఉంటాయి. హ్మ్. హ్మ్. బై డిఫాల్ట్ మెథడ్స్ అవి. హ్మ్. సర్వ్లెట్ లైఫ్ సైకిల్ అంటే అదే ఇనిట్ మెథడు, సర్వీస్ మెథడు, డిస్ట్రాయ్ మెథడ్. ఇప్పుడు ఓ మనిషి ఉన్నాడు. పుడతాడు. ఆహ్, ఆహ్, ఆ! కొన్నాళ్ళు జీవిస్తాడు. తర్వాత పోతాడు కదా! అలానే సర్వ్లెట్‌కి కూడా లైఫ్ సైకిల్ ఉంటది. ఇనిట్ అంటే సర్వ్లెట్ పుట్టడం. ఇనిట్ అంటే సర్వీస్ పుట్టడం. సర్వీస్ అంటేనేమో ఆ సర్వ్లెట్ ఏదో ఒక పని చేస్తది. అంటే బిజినెస్ లాజిక్ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేయడం ఇదంతా చేస్తది. డిస్ట్రాయ్ అంటే పోతది. ఇది జనరల్‌గా. హ్మ్. సో, సర్వ్లెట్ లైఫ్ సైకిల్ అంటే అవే ఉంటాయి. 3 మెథడ్స్. ఇనిట్ మెథడ్, సర్వీస్ మెథడ్, డిస్ట్రాయ్ మెథడ్. అలా విచ్ ఈస్ సిమిలర్ టు హ్యూమన్ లైఫ్ ఓన్లీ. ఓకే. సో, జనరల్లీ అది మీకు సినారియో. మీకు గ్రేడ్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఇంటర్వ్యూస్ టఫ్‌గానే జరుగుతాయి. ఓకేనా? బాగా ప్రిపేర్ అవ్వండి. మీ ప్రిపేర్ అయ్యి ఇంటర్వ్యూస్ ఇవ్వండి. మీ ఇంటర్వ్యూస్ మీరల్సో ఆ రోజు ఆ గ్రూప్‌లోనే షేర్ చేస్తాం. ఓకేనా? ఎవరైతే క్లియర్ చేస్తారో వాళ్ళు ఆ బ్యాచ్‌కి, ఎవరైతే అటెండ్ అవ్వరో వాళ్ళకి 1 మంత్ అంటే నెక్స్ట్ ఏం బ్యాచ్ లోపు మళ్ళీ వాళ్ళు ఇంక ఈ బ్యాచ్‌కి అటెండ్ అవ్వరు. నెక్స్ట్ ఏం బ్యాచ్‌కి అటెండ్ అవుతారు. నెక్స్ట్ ఏం బ్యాచ్‌కో అటెండ్ అవుతారు. సో, ఇంకా నెక్స్ట్ అనేది డిపెండ్స్ ఆన్ యూ. హ్మ్.